Well, what led us up to this moment is probably three-quarters of a decade or more of tyranny from a federal government who refuses to follow the Constitution, the rule of law, and is as corrupt as any government that's ever been in existence, including the government of King George III, against whom we fought a war to separate ourselves. And we've come full circle, and if you go back in time and study American history, you'll see that our government is just every bit as out of control as the Parliament and King of England were back in 1776. And so this country, wrong term, this government of ours no longer respects the Bill of Rights. It does not respect land rights, does not respect the Second Amendment, and everything that the Founding Fathers established for this country is now being trampled upon and destroyed by our own federal government. And let me say this very clearly. The people of the United States are being protected by no one on this particular case. We are not better off because the idiots of the federal government and the criminals of the federal government have arrested this man and put him in prison. And it is the epitome of corruption. It is the epitome of this administration. And so many of us were so distraught about this that we went out to the Hammonds' home this past Saturday and had a huge rally for them. It was beautiful. It was spectacular in some cases when you got up close to the hill towards the Hammonds' home, looking back down the street for about 2.5 blocks. The entire street was full of people with flags and signs and the spirit of 76, if you will, marching up there for freedom. And we let the Hammonds know that we loved them and we supported them. We laid flowers on their yard and front doorstep. A few of us hugged the Hammonds and expressed our condolences and our apology for our own stupid government. And they thanked us, and we started, the crowd just broke out with amazing grace as we left. And
So,
Mr. Hammond waved everybody and he said this isn't about me, this is about our country. And then we left, and about an hour later, I get a call from Ammon Bundy, and he tells me that they've taken over the federal building out at the Wildlife Reserve in Burns, Oregon. That's about all I know. I have talked to Ammon since then, and I will tell you this. The media who wants to brand and label Ammon Bundy as a nut extremist, that is a lie. I don't agree with what Ammon's doing. I've told Ammon so, but Ammon Bundy is a good friend of mine. He is a good person. He is a good man. And you talk to anybody who knows him, they'll tell you the same.
go ahead.
But let me tell you this. I've already talked to sheriffs in Arizona. I've talked to sheriffs in Utah, talked to sheriffs in Texas, and talked to sheriffs in Florida. Do you know that those sheriffs in every one of those states, and not all sheriffs, but some of them, have cited numerous incidents to me, and when I was sheriff, I had the same thing happen, that the federal government, usually the Forest Service or the BLM, does their own controlled burnings just like the Hammonds did, and the wind picks up, and they burn the half the side of our Mount Graham in Graham County where I was sheriff. And nobody got fired, and nobody got charged with arson, and nobody paid any fines, and these people are never charged with terrorist acts, and yet what happens? They do it to a 73-year-old man who is nothing but a law-abiding, good, honest American citizen. And this is what our government does. And it's ruthless, and it's about as corrupt as it could possibly be. And every sheriff now in this country needs to start filing charges against federal officials who do the same thing and charge those people with domestic terrorism and arson and put them in prison just like they did the Hammonds.
And that's a call to action. That would be a call to action. I mean, enough is enough. I understand patriotic Americans are flying to Oregon right now. And I totally understand what Ammon Bundy has done, the frustration of this tyranny. But
Yeah.
I've been talking to a lot of people. A lot of people are afraid for the safety of them in Oregon because they feel that something may happen
Yeah,
where there may be another Waco. This may be turn into another Waco. If
sure.
and there's even speculation that there might be people in there to instigate certain things to trigger some type of conflict.
Yes,
What,
that's
what's
all
your
possible.
what's your thoughts on that? Are you afraid for the Bundys and the other
Oh,
patriotic Americans that are there?
yeah. And I'm not sure who all's in there, and I don't believe Ammon knows who's all in there.
Right.
I don't believe he knows everybody in there well enough to risk his life for them and put his life in their hands, and I think he's done that. And yes, I'm extremely afraid for Ammon and his two brothers. I know his brother Ryan. I don't know Mel very well. I know his father and his mother pretty well. But I'm really fearful for his life. And you never know what this corrupt government's going to do. If they can do it to Hammonds and they can do it to Waco and Ruby Ridge and other places,
Right.
they will do it again. And their MO and their history is very sordid and corrupt and non-caring. And whatever they have to do to save face, they're going to do. And the scary thing I fear also is that there's just no way that the federal government can allow Ammon and the other people therein to win this. They can't allow him to have a victory on this.
Right.
The Ammon Bundy and his family had a huge victory back a year and a half ago in Bunkerville, Nevada, and they barely escaped with their lives at that time. The order to kill the protesters and the Bundys was given. I know it was given, and a deputy sheriff stopped it. And I'm going to tell you, I got to do a shout out for Lou Dobbs because this past Monday night, Lou Dobbs did a fantastic story about this, and he knocked it out of the park, and he was exactly correct. And you know what he said is the real problem here? He says, we all know the federal government's corrupt. We know they're going to do things like this, but the elected officials in Oregon should have stopped it.
Right.
And the sheriff of Harney County should have stopped this, and the county commissioners and the county attorney and the senators and congressmen from Oregon and others should have stepped up, the governor, and they should have made sure that this innocent family did not have their rights violated by the federal government. And for anybody to think that we can't stand for freedom and stop a government from doing these sort of things needs to read the Declaration of Independence, because this is exactly what we should be stopping. And I understand the frustration that Ammon Bundy has experienced, and I feel the same way he does, but I just don't agree with this tactic. I don't think it can win. And I fear for his family and himself.
What should the grassroots people all over this nation, what can they do to try to demand the release of the Hammonds?
One thing, I want you to call your sheriff and demand that he charge any federal official with the same crimes that the Hammonds got, and then call all public officials, the governor's office, and any elected officials that you know in Oregon, especially the sheriff, and encourage him to do his job and say, look, your job is to protect people from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. So how about all criminals, foreign and domestic? And to have a sheriff say, oh yeah, well, I'll protect you from street criminals and rapists and murderers, but I won't protect you from any crime the federal government commits. That doesn't make any sense at all. To whom can the people turn for peace, safety, and liberty when government becomes out of control and corrupt? If it's not your local officials, and especially your sheriff, who swore an oath in God's name to
That's
uphold and
right.
defend the Constitution, where else can we go? And that's exactly what our CSPOA does. And we would love people to get behind us there too. Become a member of the CSPOA at cspoa.org and help us in this battle.